Numinous Podcast with Carmen Spaniola.
Hi there, and welcome to the Numinous Podcast, where we have interesting conversations with everyday folks about the mystery of life. This podcast is a complement to the Numinous School, an online intuition development course for people who want their self-awareness to serve a greater good. I'm your host, Carmen Spaniola, and today I'm speaking with my friend Agneta. She's a corporate leadership coach, and we're talking about her investigations and experiences with shamanism. I connected with Agneta via Skype. She was at home in Sweden. So Agneta, what originally drew you to the shamanic path? How were you first introduced to this style of earth-based spirituality?
I don't know really how it all started, but I think the connection is nature. And I've always been drawn to nature because I think in nature everything is like as perfect. There's no perfection in life, but there's perfection in nature, and everything is in balance. And in the shamanic teaching, you have something called Aini, which is about balance, being in balance, an energetic balance. And I think that was what I was searching for. I had done a lot of work on myself, but I hadn't really felt that I had come deep enough. And working with normal therapy, I even had studied for a diploma in a spiritual kind of psychology as a therapist. There is so much about mind. There is an intellectual dialogue, and it also touches heart, and it goes into the heart, but it doesn't really touch upon the physical dimension. Mm-hmm. And I felt that with energetic work you do in the shamanic path, you use it's the whole body. It's not the mind. It's what do you call holistic that way.
Mm. What was your first experience then? Did you, meet with a shaman one-on-one, or did you, travel to Machu Picchu? How did you first have an initial encounter and experience physically embodied with shamanism?
I think the very, very first thing was that when I was studying psychosynthesis, we had a teacher. We had one part of the program which was called the body, and the person leading that program was a shaman from the North American Indians, the Lakota Indians. And I went to summer school with him for 3 years, and there we did a lot of shamanic, but they're very different from the South American practices. But we did sun dance, we did fire dance a whole night. We were rattling. We did a medicine wheel, and so that was the first encounter with being in that kind of work.
So you went on to do training in shamanism. Can you tell me a little about how you became interested in learning how to work with energy yourself?
I think that it was, I don't know, someone mentioned to me that a book which was about shamanism, written by, what's his name? Villaldo?
Alberto Villaldo?
I love Alberto, yeah. Time flies. Alberto Villaldo. And then he was coming to Stockholm to give a speech. And I went to the speech and thought that it would be easy to get a ticket, and I got the last one. And I stepped in, and I was sitting there, and I was thinking that, it would be nice to do some training. But he was speaking because they were going to give the first training in Sweden, and I felt, no, Sweden wasn't for me. I would like to do it in the UK, and I have 2 weeks this summer, so that would be perfect. And then I went home and looked into on the internet, and I could see that exactly the 2 weeks I was thinking about, that there was the first part, the south, to go through the whole south, west, north, east of the wheel, and there are different parts, different things you learn in each direction. So I signed up for going to England, and I wasn't going to continue. I was thinking, oh, I'll do the south, that's fine. But of course, you can't get stuck in the south. You need to move on, because there is an energetic work, and then you really get stuck. So I did a whole thing for which was all the 4 directions, and then finally also there were 3 weeks in Peru, because that kind of work is linked to the shamanism that you find in Peru. Yeah.
What is the difference, in your opinion, and neither of us are experts necessarily, but the quality and tone and style of North American shamanism versus South American versus even, I know that there are shaman in the very northern parts of Scandinavia and all around the world. So I wonder if you could just share a little bit about what you have found have been sort of the differences between them.
Oh, as you say, I'm really not a specialist. But I think the things I did when I was in the summer school with our teacher was a shaman. He was an Italian man, by the way, very passionate about these things. We did all these rituals, and I mean there are a lot of rituals. In the rituals, there's a great difference in the rituals. So in we don't have a fire dance. You don't have sweat lodge. You don't have whatever the medicine wheel in the same way in the north, in Peru. In Peru, you do fire ceremonies when there is a full moon, or you can do it otherwise too, but especially at full moon. And that's typical. We didn't do fire ceremonies that way in the North American tradition. But then that's very special. You blow into a stick or something, which is a token for what you want to get rid of, or you blow into this stick that you put into the fire something you want to receive more of. So then your prayers and this goes up as it's burned into spirit. And then, so it's fire ceremonies, and they also do despacho, which is gratitude. You do this little bundle where you put rice and beans and flowers and everything that's beautiful for the beauty of life and all you want to get into your life, and also for thanking the spirits. And that little bundle was typical for the South Americans, or at least for what I learned in Peru. We did a despacho almost every day and burnt it, which is...
Wow. So like a gratitude ritual every day.
Yeah.
Beautiful. So now back home in Sweden, you work in a very corporate atmosphere. And I'm curious about how this experience that you have, what you carry within you, your spiritual home place and that connection with nature, how do you work with that? Or how does it influence your work? How do you keep connected to that while you're in a very corporate atmosphere?
That was a lot of questions. So, so how do I? Let's see where to start. How do I work with it? How do I keep connected with it? So, decide where you want me to start, Carmen.
Well, tell me first about how you incorporate it into your work.
Yeah. So how I incorporate, I think the way I do it is, it's not, of course, something you can mention or even talk about, and that would scare them. So I mean, I can't even use the word energy when I'm working. It's getting a little bit better, but that also it scares people off. At least up here in the Nordics, where people are very kind of square in many ways. So I don't know if you recognize that visiting here, but it's a bit very structured and mindy. So, but of course, you do affect people unconsciously. And I think what's very important to me is to keep my practice, which is a morning practice, and the morning practice, I'm bringing the earth, and I'm bringing the heaven, and I connect to the archetypes, the serpent, the jaguar, eagle, hummingbird, etc. So I know that my energy is as good as I can get it, as far as I can get it good. I mean, there are lots of things to do, but being connected to the shamanic energies supports me in my work. So I feel stronger when I step into the corporate world, because of course there's a different kind of energy there, and but by coming from my energy, I can affect their energy. So I feel it's really important to lead by state, to take care of my state, and make sure that I'm centered there, or in connection with the energies that will bring them the best, bring them the most.
That makes sense. Yeah. And so when you're working in an atmosphere that it can be so dismissive of, let's say, spirituality in general, or even just, very sort of, many people would consider energy entirely separate from spirituality, that it just is. When you're working in that environment where you can't even say the E word, how do you master or influence others through your state? Is that just by conscious breathing, say, when you're around the boardroom, or do you visualize a power animal before it's your turn to speak, or is it just that morning practice that sets the tone for the day?
It's the morning practice, and then also when I work with, usually I work with a lot of leadership training. So what I do before, I'm always there ahead of time, at least an hour, and then I open sacred space. So I feel I am in sacred space, and I know I notice the difference is if I haven't opened the four directions. And then it's sort of a prayer that I bring into the room, because when I open south, which is the serpent, praying for them to be able to shed their skin and walk with beauty on earth. And then I want to serpent, which is about letting go, having energies, and hummingbird, which is drinking the sweet nectar of life, and then eagle, of course, connecting to great spirit, and helping them, or allowing them to see the mountains they're dreaming of. So they're really moving towards something that is supporting Mother Earth and the planet.
Wow, that's beautiful. Imagine walking into a boardroom and feeling that there's that kind of power, that energy is already held there. Now, some people may not notice because they're so caught up in the mind. But for those of us who are more sensitive, or those of us who like to be more attuned to the dynamics in the room, what an amazing gift to have you go in there and call in all that support. Are there any other tools that you use or practices that you find helpful in the workplace?
No, because I can't use them consciously. So no. Because other, if you go back to the training, it's more, I chose to work with in a normal setting with people, with lots of people, where I influence them sort of by my state of being. But otherwise, if you do work, what I learned in my training is energy medicine, and then you really put the person on the floor and you do work with them, and that's not what I'm doing.
Right. So, but have you ever been in, say, a leadership training where you start to get an intuitive sense, or you start to feel like you're being guided to do work with somebody? Does that ever happen to you?
What do you mean, do you work with
I
somebody?
mean, like, let's say you have somebody who's in the leadership training, and you get the sense that they're very blocked in a certain area, or you get a sense that they have some sort of lesson, or they're being pointed towards their own medicine, but they can't see it. Do you ever get a feeling or an intuitive hit that this person needs a certain kind of healing that you could help with them with? you probably don't act on it, but I'm just wondering if your intuition, if your other senses ever speak to you while you're in that corporate atmosphere.
Yeah, I can sense that about, but I could never speak to them about it. I mean, no. I mean, and just speaking about healing or like not being able to use the word energy, I use the word as atmosphere. And when I speak about, I try to help them to be, what I can help them with is becoming more aware. So I try to increase awareness by asking about sort of reading the field in the room. So what's the atmosphere? What are you sensing right now? How is it? And then I can ask how come, and in that sense they can become aware of their stance and their approach and attitude to things and how that affects the whole group. So it's more like those things I bring in than actual personal healing and training. What I can recommend is it's in the corporate world, it's going to a coach. If I recommend them to go to a therapist, I mean, they think it's even that is too far.
So, how does that affect you as a person who is brought alive by nature? You're working in the corporate atmosphere. Your work is in being very informed by your spiritual self, and then you immerse yourself in an atmosphere that's so hostile towards what is so essential to you. How do you make sense of that in your life?
What do you mean would make sense of that?
Well, I'm just wondering if there's do you feel like this you're being of spiritual service to them? Do you feel like the corporate world isn't a good fit for you? Do you feel drained by it perhaps, or do you feel as though this is sort of like karma yoga? You're going into this hostile environment as a way to lead people to their spirit. I'm just wondering, like, why do you think you've chosen to work in that atmosphere when you are so drawn by your natural self?
I think, yeah, I think that's my purpose. I try to do work. I've done executive coaching one-on-one, and I can do that occasionally. But I feel that way my energy is not affecting enough of people. It's too slow of a change. There's so much needed, and in order to create a change, you create a lot of change if you change the culture within the company. And you only need to change since I'm working with leaders, if you manage to somehow, and they don't know how and why, come closer to their inner compass about who they are and who they want to be, that will create change. And so that's how, and I feel that's my purpose, to contribute to that, or being a catalyst. It's not that I contribute, but I do. But it's more of that I'm a catalyst for that to happen.
And so, do you find after doing that service that you need to, I don't know, like, I'm just wondering how you maintain your sense of connection to nature? How often do you go on, say, vision quests or pilgrimage, or how often do you reconnect with shamanic teachers and things to just keep yourself filled up?
I don't reconnect with shamanic teachers, because I also think that, I mean, there's so many layers, and I'm always moving on, and I don't want anything to become a church. And I think as soon as I put too much form or too much belief in something, I'm making it into church. And so there is like the shamanic thing. It's one thing, and I've learned a lot of other spiritual things that are pieces in a puzzle, and the shamanic thing is one piece in the puzzle. And then now I'm working on another piece in the puzzle, which is an add-on. And then I bring it's like creating a good meal, or eating a gourmet dish or something, and then you put a little spice of that and a little spice of that, and together it works for me. But I can't be so dogmatic that I'm really connected to just one thing. That's why the shamanic path is like, it's a spice. but it's not all there is. There's a lot more that I practice. But all through it, as you say, nature is the kind of the foundation that connects everything I do. And I refuse to work in a, if I hope, if in a place that's not beautiful, because I think nature is beautiful, and beauty is one of my values. And I think so as often as I can, I bring the people I work with into a venue that's close to nature, and I have them go out in nature and go for walks, and they can do sharing when I outside. And we can also, like last week, we were sitting on a cliff in the archipelago with a group. We were working with doing strategic work, but we were finding out their areas of focus for the next year, sitting on this cliff looking out towards all the islands of the archipelago in the wind. It was windy, and I had a flip chart with me that you can carry. So I mean, you can do a lot of the work outdoors, and that affects them as well.
That's beautiful. So, last question, Agneta, what do you consider perfect happiness?
Oh, I think perfect happiness is when you have this bliss, sort of, when you feel you're connected to yourself, feel peaceful, when you're totally in the now. And it's like everything is still, sort of. It's very difficult for me to always be in the few moments when you're there. But to me, that's really when I feel, there's not perfect happiness. There's no perfection.
Well, thank you so much for being here with me now. I really appreciated just hearing your perspective on how shamanism plays a part in your life. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you.
And that, for my North American friends, is an example of pragmatic Swedish spirituality. I love it. Open-minded and yet quite practical. What I love about Agneta's approach is that she is such an ardent, devoted lover of nature and infuses it into her day by setting the tone for the day with her morning practice. And two things that I'm going to remember as I move through the corporate and executive world, because I'm not always dealing with an audience that is interested in spirituality. A lot of times when I'm speaking professionally, I'm speaking about the subconscious or the mind or how to tap into creativity. And yet those two tools, number one, finding a venue close to nature, because it's such a tonic for the overactive mind. And number two, opening sacred space in the room before others come in. That was a great tool. And Agneta, when she was referencing the 4 directions, she was using the animal totems of the South American shamanic tradition, the serpent, the jaguar, the eagle, and the hummingbird. Now, if there are other details that you would like more information about Alberto Villoldo's book or psychosynthesis, all of that information can be found on my website, carmenspagnola.com, CarmenSpagnola. That's where you'll find the links to learn more about today's topics, and just click on the podcast link to find the show notes there. I want to thank Agneta again for coming on, and thank you for listening. If you enjoyed the show, I'd really appreciate your review on iTunes, and do share it far and wide so it can reach more seekers like you. You never know who really needs to hear it now. If you'd like to keep exploring the great mystery of life with me, you can go to my website, carmenspagnola.com, and click the link for the Numinous School, my online intuition development course. While you're there, sign up for my monthly email newsletter. You'll instantly receive a free meditation download, and you'll get something free from me every month. Until next time, take care.